very confident in yesterday as we were leaving. And Tayshawn Alston, three-star linebacker out of Henderson, North Carolina, did commit to the Gamecocks last night, adding to what is already a pretty full linebacker class for 2025.
Yeah, big class. I think there's a chance it gets even bigger. Obviously, they lose a lot of guys from this current room, and that's the thing. When you have a veteran group, you have to sort of go ahead and look ahead, and I expect them to maybe not go all three levels like Chris talks about with defensive line, but certainly they're going to take a big high school class, and then I would imagine from what I've heard, go portal hopping again as well. And so for them, Tayshawn Alston, yet another kind of unique skill set. And from what I've been told, they like the balance they have in this room in terms of getting some guys that aren't all exactly the same. Like there's some diversity of skill sets in this group. Tayshawn Alston listed as an edge, but being brought to South Carolina as a linebacker prospect, being brought to South Carolina as somebody who can be moved around a little bit, though, can be put in pass rush situations. He's now 6'4", 232 pounds. And interestingly enough, Chris, I guess I knew this, but I had forgotten until I was going back and looking at his recruitment. South Carolina was actually the first to offer him all the way back in May of last year. So this was one where really, I don't know if South Carolina truly led the entire way, but I think you can safely say South Carolina was like in the top mix, like among his top schools the entire time. And there ended up being very little drama to this. Even did you watch the announcement on Instagram?
Yeah.
It was, I texted somebody, I was like, man, that was the most on-time, efficient, just it was right up there. Now, Lenoris might have had the most efficient on-time. Yeah. Almost missed it, and I was there to stream it because I was like, I got time. And then
this thing won't start for 30 minutes. Yeah,
boom, the hat is going on.
Yeah, I'm going to South Carolina.
Yeah,
thanks.
And so Tayshawn, but man, I know you've interviewed him several times. Seems like a great kid and kind of a versatile guy in terms of how I think South Carolina wants to use him.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. I think you have a little bit more. I've been following this recruitment for a while, but like as a player and prospect, I think you have a little bit more insight on it. So if you look at his profile right now, 6'4", 204, but as you said, it's been verified that this kid's up to 230 now.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a weight from 2022. We went back and
a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So now I look at him, and On3's got him listed as an edge. Now, when you look at him, especially knowing that he's in the 230s, if you say, hey, we got this edge prospect, 6'4", 230, you go, that's pretty good size for an edge. Well, now, but you consider the fact that South Carolina's had him on the board as a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big linebacker. So, are we thinking of this kid in like maybe a Bam Scott mold because he's, Bam is 6'3", 240 right now and can run and can, blitz and cover. Is that kind of the plan, we think?
I guess. I asked specifically once I found out he was that weight. I was like, well, so is the edge thing going to end up being right? And I was told,
yeah,
explicitly, no, he is being recruited as a linebacker. Now, if he gets up to 250 something, then it's a different conversation, right? And a lot of these guys they're bringing in, again, a big linebacker class. If you get in South Carolina's scheme, if you start getting into the 250, 260 range, then yeah, the conversation has to be had. At that point, you're going to be an edge guy. And, now I think the thing – so I was told when South Carolina continued their evaluation of him that he looked like he not only had gotten bigger, but he also had not only maintained but actually gotten faster as he sort of has grown into his body. And so they seem convinced he can play linebacker. Now Bam, Bam is like he's kind of a freak athlete.
Yeah, he's an anomaly kind of.
So I think when you look at Austin, yeah, you're more thinking this is kind of a 3-3-5 linebacker as opposed to not that he can't do it in the 4-2-5 that South Carolina runs at times, but I don't know if you can tell that yet from the film. A lot of the film, he's playing like stand-up, pass rush linebacker off the edge.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But South Carolina has kind of taken the approach with these guys of we like them all. We need a big class. Let's land as many of them as we can, and then it will sort of play out however it's going to play out.
Yeah, and I think if you if he gets to South Carolina, he's like, man, he's just kind of getting too big and can't really stop that train, and now he's 250. You could always play him at edge because he's got the length and probably the skill set to do it. He's not a tweener, really. If he outgrows linebacker, then fine, you just make him an edge. But, man, like you look at the just a general point, this defensive class is very much still being, structured. It's still being built out. But there's some, like, this is kind of a measurables class for South Carolina. When you count him, a 6'4", 230-pound linebacker. We'll see if South Carolina can hold on to Shamari Earls, but if they can, he's a 6'2", 200-pound corner. Jaquavius Dodd, over 6'5", 235. Plenty of room to continue growing into that frame. Caleb Williams, we've seen Caleb in person. He's 6'5", flat, 273. Plenty of room to get bigger. Anthony Addison is one of the quote-unquote smaller guys, but he's still 6'4", 215, edge guy. Austin, Jaquel Hallman, plenty of room to grow. What was he, Wes?
He's about 200, 205
205, 6'1".
He'll play 215, 225 eventually.
DeMarcus Leach at safety, 6'3", 185. Cobby, one of the smaller ones, but he's 6'3", 210 at safety. A.J. Holloway, 6'3", 225.
At
Hatfield.
edge, you mean?
At edge, I'm sorry. And Hatfield's almost 6'3", 205 at corner. So they have length for days at a lot of these positions on defense.
I want to go back to the speed when talking about Alston, and he's a track guy as well, and you mentioned him going between edge and playing linebacker. Is it more of that lateral quickness, or is it the straight line speed that you see when you watch this guy?
Yeah, I mean, he really a lot of what they do with him is pass rush. So you're talking about more first step, explosive off the edge, can kind of, I would say, weed through traffic, disengage from blocks, be physical, stuff like that. You don't, and again, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying literally with what they ask him to do in the film I watched, you don't see them ask him to go cover a ton. So that would be something that I think South Carolina feels like athletically he can do, or they wouldn't have him at linebacker. But at least the film I saw from this past season, they did not ask him to do a ton of that. Now, I need to go back and see what he was doing as a sophomore as well, because if you look at the numbers, he played, I think he must have been hurt some last year. I think he played in 7 games last year. He played in a more complete season last year, or the season prior, I should say, and had more numbers from a tackle standpoint. His sacks, in terms of sacks per game, were actually about the same as a sophomore and junior, but he racked up more tackles as a sophomore, which tells me you're probably being asked to be a little bit more of a sideline-to-sideline guy as opposed to the pass rush guy they asked him to be in high school as a junior. Also, the kid, I think, has played some high school basketball, has played some high school baseball. You mentioned track. I mean, he is one of those multi-sport athletes, which is something these days all coaches look for.
And again, he's the latest commitment for the 2025 class, which should continue to grow and grow over these past couple weeks. We did get a decommitment from a future class, though. We'll dive into that coming up. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Wednesday here on The Game.
All right, everybody, as you know by now, or you just hadn't been paying attention, this show is presented by Firehouse Subs. Perfect time to go ahead and order your lunch from our friends at Firehouse Subs. But also want to remind you again, tomorrow for 3 full hours, 9 a.m. to noon, we will be broadcasting live from the Firehouse Subs in Casey. If you're familiar with Casey, you can't miss it. If you're not familiar with it, just plug it into your GPS. 542 Knox Abbott Drive, Casey, South Carolina. Come out. I've not talked to Josh yet, but I'm sure we'll have some freebies. Of course, you can just come hang out and get you an awesome lunch from Firehouse Subs. As always, the easiest, best, most efficient way to order it is with the Rapid Rescue to Go. Avoid the wait. Order online. firehousesubs.com. Log in, sign up, or even better, get the Firehouse Subs app and order on there. No matter how you order, you're going to get points every single time that you can trade in for free food from Firehouse Subs.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you on your Wednesday. Continue to talk about recruiting as our lead story yesterday was Cutter Woods making the flip from Wake Forest to South Carolina to add a quarterback to the 2025 class. And last night, in the wake of that, we actually had a decommitment from the 2026 class. Landon Duckworth, who had been committed since August of last year, the lone commitment for the 2026 class for a while, decided he wanted to open his recruitment back up after seeing Cutter Woods being added to Carolina's 2025 class.
Yeah, and obviously you can read into that timing there. At the same time, you know, there had been a rumor that Duckworth may open it up before this actually happened, so I don't know exactly how connected they were. And, you know, I think anytime you're talking about a 2026 and it's this early or as early as it was last August, like I remember, Chris, when we like found out he was about to commit, and you're like, geez, I mean, this is early for an out-of-state guy.
Yeah.
And I always kind of took it like, I mean, you accept the commitment from him, but
Sure.
I don't think you're ever sitting there that early just locking yourself into like, oh, yeah, that guy's definitely going to be our quarterback for the 2026 class. Like, you kind of have to recruit like you still got an open spot there for a quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So does it burn South Carolina? Like, does it hurt? Like, I see why fans would maybe be upset about it, yes. But that early, especially with the way quarterback recruiting is these days with the portal, I don't think you can let yourself get too upset about this, frankly. Will they keep recruiting him? We'll see. Will he probably end up back in the class? I would guess probably not. And I don't know. I just think it's too early to be too concerned about that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and you and I joked about it kind of behind the scenes, when he committed. It's kind of like, I mean, are the odds greater that he ends up in South Carolina's class or somewhere else, when you commit that early? And I think there's a few different things to it. It's a very, this happened in August of last year. It was kind of when we did have a little heads up that it was probably about to happen, but it still kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, really? Like, I would not, he had an offer, but did not see it coming. Also, the coach that recruited him was Jody Wright, now the head coach at Murray State. Jody had some connections.
Think he's going to Murray State?
Yeah. No offense to Jody or Murray
that'd be
State,
quite a
but
flip.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if they got a good NIL deal there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe. But Jody had some connections. He's an Alabama guy and had some connections to Jackson, and they got him committed. But even then, like, he kept picking up offers. He's a quarterback, a talented one. You figured that people would continue coming after him. It's very early. I don't know that the timing has anything to do with, he's not in the same class as Cutter. I think it was just something that was maybe, I don't want to say bound to happen. Like, if he would eventually sign with South Carolina, I wouldn't have been shocked. But I'm certainly not sitting here shocked or even surprised, that he's opened things up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just like, well, that's recruiting at this point.
Pretty much.
If it was closer to, like, if he was at 2025 and you kind of were building your class around him, I think it's a different story. Even then, it's really all about, do you have a guy on your campus who can be the guy? Everybody's looking for the guy. It's kind of like an NFL team now. It used to be, you recruit a bunch of high school guys, and then you hope out of the 3 years that one of those guys is the guy. Now you do that, but if you don't find the guy, well, let's go get a portal quarterback. And so I don't want to say this is nothing, but in the grand scheme, is it even? And this is not sour grapes, I promise. But is it even close enough to when he gets to college to even know the percentage of him panning out? Like, and I would have said that even when he committed. Like, he's a high upside guy. You took the commitment for a reason. Like, he is a big, strong, physical kid that can power the football down the field. But you're talking, it's a long way until he's going to be asked to play in a college football game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he may win the Heisman in 4 years. But it's, to me, it's not really worth the energy of getting too worked up over a 2026 quarterback.
Yeah, it's different.
Unless it was just like, Deshaun Watson was like a stud from the very beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, if it's a guy that you're really counting on, you know, like if you're really, really counting on him, or if it's like a Lenore Sellers situation where, you kind of offered him later and then you didn't end up getting him because of that, or if you recruited him all along and he's an in-state kid who's really, really good and you don't get him, and then you have to look back on it and go, God, what if? It's just so many things that were different about that situation to where, nobody was sitting here going, all right, Landon Duckworth's coming in the 2026 class. Like, you just couldn't count on it because of all the different circumstances there. And it looks like, y'all, too, that it came no surprise to South Carolina staff either. They almost immediately dispensed some new 2026 quarterback offers as well. I think they put out 3 of them last night. all incidentally to prospects in Florida. So, if you're kind of wondering what's next in the 2026 class, it's kind of hard to tell. I don't know if they had any of those guys on campus this summer, not that I can remember. One of them's committed to Notre Dame that they offered already. So we'll just kind of see what happens there.
Let's get to much more pressing matters at hand. We'll wrap up today's edition of the show with top 25 toughest places to play based on EA Sports' College Football 25 video game that came out yesterday. We'll dive into that next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, everyone, allow me to tell you about one of the top-rated general contractors in the Midlands. It's our friends over at Midlands Home Renovations. Head on over to midlandshomerenovations.com or call them today for a free estimate, 855-249-3180. They specialize in both interior and exterior residential remodeling services to kitchens or bathrooms or whole home renovations. They have the expertise to handle projects really of any size and complexity. Their team is going to work closely with you to understand what your vision is and then help you bring that to life with precision and attention to detail. Again, any project, big or small, they can do it all for you. Do what we do here at 1075 and call Midlands Home Renovations today or visit them online, midlandshomerenovations.com, or call them 855-249-3180.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, Tyler Head, West Mitchell. Chris Clark along with you for a few more minutes here. Reminder, craft beer card is back. Go online to 1075thegame.com. Click on the Sweet Deals tab. Purchase yourself a craft beer card, $30. A brewery at 12 different craft beer locations, $306 value, all yours for just $79. We are 23 days away from the release of EA Sports College Football 25, and in the days closing out the month of June, they're releasing more details and things about the inner workings of the game to give you the best college football experience. And yesterday, they put out their list of top 25 toughest places to play. And thankfully for people here in South Carolina, Carolina did make the list at number 15, Williams-Brice Stadium, nestled between Jordan-Hare and Michigan Stadium at 14 and 16, respectively. And, you know, for South Carolina, I think that's a pretty fair place to land. We know, obviously, what the environment in Willoughby is, especially on a Saturday night, and good to see it represented well in the game.
How do we feel, Chris?
First of all, by the way, there have been more than a couple people who have vouched for Williams-Brice Stadium on social media. One of them is Jim Nagy, the Reese Senior Bowl, head of the Reese Senior Bowl. He, has vouched for Williams-Brice and thinks it should be higher. I've seen some others say, hey, that's probably a top 10 stadium. The formula, apparently, there are different things that went into it. One of them, of course, is just a team's home record. Like, those things count, right? When I look at a stadium, the way that I think about it is maybe not just who the team you're playing is, right? Like Bama is number 2 at Memorial Stadium. I have not been there. I will go there this year, so I will report back. From what I've seen, I was a little surprised it was number 2, but I think part of that is just because when you go play Bama in Tuscaloosa, it's hard to play Bama in Tuscaloosa because they're really good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it...
Shouldn't that already be baked into the roster, I feel like?
Yeah.
That's more of a
I think
how
of
good
more
is the
just,
team?
just environment.
And
Yes.
so the EA Sports, they said the criteria for deciding this list factored into things like historical stats, like home winning percentage, home game attendance, active winning streaks, team prestige, and more. So it's not just one thing that goes into this, which is why a lot of people did have an issue with Texas A&M and Kyle Field being listed as number 1. Because, yes, you have, 100,000 people out there, and they do have, the yells and all that kind of stuff, the traditions they have during the game. Their home record since joining the SEC, it's not all that great. They're 64-22 overall, 24-20 in conference play. So I do think winning at home more should matter, which in that case, Alabama may deserve to be number 1 on the list. But I don't know if people would say it has the richest traditions in the stadium at Brighton either.
Yeah.
Who has the biggest beef?
Ooh.
I don't. So the fact that South Carolina made top 15 and the program right now is not kind of one that's creating a lot of national headlines, I think does speak to the respect that they do have for Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yes.
Because, I was just trying to watch the Sights and Sounds thing that just came out. I may have missed it. I didn't see a Williams-Brice clip in there either. There's been very, very little South Carolina mention in the sort of publicity that has come out for the game to this point. So
Post that in the locker room.
so this, tell you who I think has some beef, though. No Nebraska in the top 25? Haven't they sold out?
8 million straight sellouts.
That's a good point.
I know they haven't been good.
To your point, Wes, Williams-Brice is a spot ahead of Michigan Stadium, the Big House. They hold 107,000 people and just won the national title. So,
yeah, this is pretty.
Yeah, that's good. Like, I get it. If you're, it should be top 10. I get it. And I haven't been to all these places. Not even close. I've been to several, but it's hard because the game that I went to at the Swamp was in 2014. That was the block punt Muschamp game. Most of the people in the Swamp were like, "Let's get this over with."
Yeah, that was that was a bad year.
Now contrast that with what was it, 06 when Jarvis Moss blocked the field goal, and it sounded like an earthquake.
Yeah, I'll tell you who should be number one is LSU.
At night. LSU at night.
And,
Yep.
you know, you're going back to, like you said, you haven't been to all these stadiums, but there are certain stadiums that we know just have a reputation. And LSU, Death Valley, especially at night, it's like, oh, you don't want to go there and play at night. Like, that's where dreams go to die, so to speak. Well, like, it has a reputation that everybody around college football knows. And you can make a very solid argument. Again, they're a team that just won the national championship a couple of years ago. You can make a solid argument that they should be number one as well.
On the fly here, LSU should be number one. Now, to Chris's point, back in when Florida was really rolling, the Swamp would be number two for me. I've been to both of those. LSU, when South Carolina played there, when they had Connor, Marcus, they were leading early. I mean, both that stadium and Florida, your head literally hurt just from just the constant noise.
Mike Davis, former Gamecocks running back, weighed in on this one on Twitter, and he said when we played at LSU, the ground shook.
Yeah, it was a. So
I was at that game.
I would have LSU one. I would maybe have Penn State too, just because when they do the whiteout and
there's some controversy there.
Dude, that's an incredible environment.
Looks awesome.
Oklahoma at 8 seems a little overrated to me. Florida State above Florida seems like fighting words.
Can I give you one I think's higher?
That should be higher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan Hare.
See, I haven't been there.
Now, I did go there at a peak. 2010, Cam Newton.
Yeah, to me, they have a better atmosphere than Alabama.
Yeah, and I haven't been to Bama, but from what I've seen, it looks like at Auburn, and that was a night game, that was loud. Extremely loud.
From everything that I've heard, even in years where they're not the best like they've been in years past, it's still a pretty consistently good environment out there. And obviously we know you got voodoo on the plains, weird things happen out there, all those kind of things. So, you know, I think you can make a solid argument that Auburn could possibly be top 10 here. I mean, Tennessee at 13, you know, kind of similar to LSU with the way that those stadiums are built where the noise can't really escape and the stadium's right on top of you the entire time creates just that. I've heard people say the same things about the ground shaking at Neyland as well. So, you know, back when Tennessee was at the height of how good it was, and obviously they're getting back to that, you know, to this day. So that's another one that I think you could make an argument for maybe being in the top 10 as well.
Yeah, I tell you who I would move back would be Georgia.
Is that your dig for the day?
There's my one. No, so I've got LSU 1. Penn State, apparently controversially 2. Tell you, man, old school Swamp. I think Oregon should be higher, actually, too. That thing, the way it's shaped, I would move Oklahoma out of the top 10.
Give me your unbiased thoughts on Clemson at 12.
About right.
About right.
Yeah.
I could see it going up too. I mean, it's
Clemson,
not like the top 5, but it can move up a couple spots for me. Did y'all see? Not to hijack. Somebody put a top 5 most underwhelming. That was funny. Miami was on there.
Ooh,
a couple of the
Southern
teams.
Cal.
Yeah, Southern Cal. Actually, Notre Dame and Nebraska were on the. This is at Maggie and Perloff. They had Miami on there and Syracuse.
I might put Southern Cal as my number 1 most underwhelming, to be honest with you.
No, the most under. So it's got to be tied for number 1 is Miami and Vandy.
Well, I mean, but Vandy's never been good.
Well, but it still counts. Still an environment.
Still,
you feel like you're pulling up at a high school stadium.
Yeah,
An underwhelming high school stadium.
Well, in these past 2 years, you're playing at a construction zone.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a list, so it's going to generate a lot of talk and controversy. I mean,
But A&M 1 just feels off.
yeah, I went there. I think it was 2017. Huge stadium. It's loud, good environment. Not number 1 for me.
We'll dive into playing more of these kind of things coming up tomorrow again from 9 until 12 out at Firehouse Subs in KC, 542 Knox Abbott Drive, right across the street from Brooklyn KC High School. Come by and see us. Get a delicious Firehouse Sub as well. Coming up next, it is the halftime show. Myself, Terry Ford, on your Wednesday here on The Game.